right, I mean, like, if you all have questions, we can talk about it later. So my I got this topic, I was wondering how to address this, but I think we will, because this entire discussion is, I hope it will sensitize you towards the issue of sexual harassment. So the objective here, they are not two separate topics, but the objective here is to make everyone aware and sensitize everyone to issues of sexual harassment, which is a gender issue, as we'll discuss. So like, what are the questions? And most of you are working people, I mean, you in the university system, but apart from that, you also must be aware about people, your friends and others working in the corporate sector. As well, you might have witnessed people working in the unorganized sector, whether it's agriculture or construction, or even domestic workers who are coming to your house or going to other people's house. And most of us are aware of the issues of sexual harassment. However, for the sake of this particular program, I've tried to structure the discussion around certain issues that are there, and how it impacts those who are who are affected, who face sexual harassment, and what are the laws and acts that are there in place to address these, and why it is important to address issues or the cases, or the scenario of like the sexual harassment. So let's look around at have a look at these four broad questions that we have. What is gender sensitivity? Like, what exactly? How many of us are aware that what is gender sensitivity? And uh, is it same as gender equality? And are workplaces in today's India gender sensitive? So when we are discussing this, you need to kind of think of your workplace, right? Even if you're a man, you still have seen women also working. So please try to think when we are talking, please try to think of the kind of scenario that exists in the workplace that you are working, the college or the university, wherever you are, whether in this university or in any other university in this country, whether you're a teacher or you're a researcher, but you're all in a workspace. And so you need to put yourself in that. While we are discussing this, just don't listen to it as if you're disconnected with your place of work. So kind of start looking at it, that is your workplace gender sensitive? Is there gender equality, right? Also, is the workplace that you are coming from, as well as the other workplaces that you are familiar, I said, like corporate or any other workplace, whether it's organized sector or unorganized sector, do you think they are gender sensitive? And do you think that sexual harassment of women in workplace is on the rise? So we are going to look at all these broad things: gender sensitivity, gender equality, sexual harassment at workplace. What is it? Is it rising or whatever? So what is gender sensitivity? Basically, the issue, or gender issue, is not only sensitive, but it's also complicated, and it affects both women and men. Now, gender is not same as sex, right? Gender is a social construct whereby our society gives us a certain category. So it is not limited to male and female. It also determines, like, which caste, which community, which minority, which group you are coming from, and that defines your gender, and places you in a certain kind of a hierarchical position within the society. And that is why it's complicated, because there are some who think they are superior to others. There are some of us who are treated as inferior, and women being one of them. So the sex is also included, but within the sex, it could be a person of color, a person of minority, right? A person of a certain caste, a certain indigenous communities, whatever class. So it's very complicated, it's very sensitive. And because men and women are there in all these different categories, so they are going to be affected regardless of whether they are man or woman, they are going to be affected. And so gender sensitivity basically refers to making the concerns of both men and women, uh, you know as well as their experiences, as something which is essential to all policies and programs in any organization. So you think of your organization and try to think that, are there policies and are there programs gender sensitive? Do they take into consideration both women's and men's concerns and their experiences, right? For instance, like I'll just kind of move away slightly from this topic to from sexual harassment, to tell you that you all must be familiar that lot of schools in the rural area, like a lot of time girls are not able to go to schools in rural areas and remote areas. What is the reason? Because the schools are either at a very far off place from their house, which is another issue. However, sometimes even the school, if the school is in the same village, the girls are still not going. Why? Because the schools don't have separate toilets for girls, or don't have toilets. Now this is being gender insensitive, because that girls will need separate toilets. They cannot go to boys' toilets. So the concern over here and the experience. So maybe the girls went to a toilet where it was also boys' toilet, and they were harassed, right? And so their experiences. Now, if the school is not taking into consideration the concern of safety and the harassment experience that they faced, and not ensuring that there are separate toilets for them, then that particular school is being gender insensitive. And so we see these examples in a lot of places. You look around in your workplace and you will find this. So why do we need gender sensitivity? Basically, so that men and women benefit equally. Now, gender sensitivity doesn't mean that we're only going to be sensitive towards women, right? It means that we have to be sensitive. The organization needs to be sensitive both towards men and women, both towards men and women from every group, not just certain groups, right? Uh, so in India, we're all people of color. But if you are working in some foreign country, or if you're visiting some foreign country, and they're not being sensitive to the people of color like you and me, then they are not being gender sensitive. Okay. Also, inequality, because if we are not gender sensitive, it is going to promote inequality in the organization, in the workplace. So that needs to be ensured. So if we don't want gender inequality, then we must ensure that there is gender equality. Now, and that can only be achieved if there is gender sensitive and inclusive work culture, right? So we've seen in the previous slide that we need to have gender sensitivity, and then the work culture should be inclusive. Now, what does inclusive work culture mean? That it should include both men and women, as well as men and women from all different groups, castes, communities, religions, minorities. They should get equal opportunity. So then only the work culture can be called inclusive, right? So only if an organization is able to identify gender inequality and gender discrimination, that this is happening. Yes, we realize that, yes, we've not been able to create a gender equality, or make sure that everybody is treated equally. So identification is the first step. Once you've done that, then the organization must understand that now this gender discrimination should be now handled, right? So they need to understand, identify, as well as address gender inequality and gender discrimination. Now say gender inequality, but suppose gender discrimination. So we are only promoting men. Why? Because the organization feels okay, because men are don't take as much leave, and women, because of maternity leave, childcare, they're taking leave. But are women doing that as some kind of just an excuse to stay at home? Not at all. Bearing a child, delivering a child, taking care of the child is the role that has been assigned to women by the society. So therefore, she has to do these duties, and therefore these different types of leave have been incorporated in the rules, and that is why she's taking it. So why should she be denied leave? Sorry, why should she be, first of all, denied leave? Secondly, why should she be denied promotion? Why should she not be given an opportunity to kind of have a progression in her career, just because she has been assigned the responsibility to take care of the children in the family, right? So this is gender discrimination. Promotions नहीं देना, या आपको आपका आपके सैलरी में improvement नहीं देना, कि अरे she will the women will get married and go away. Okay, that is also a role that has been assigned by the society. Most of the time is the girls who have to go, right? Rarely do we have men coming and staying where the girl or the woman is working. So there shouldn't be any gender inequality and discrimination. If it is there, the organizations should identify it and handle it. Ultimate, and these are just a few examples I give to make you understand gender equality. But we are actually driving at the point where we need to understand sexual harassment at workplace and otherwise, and also, and through this process, what I'm trying to do is sensitize you towards gender issues. So ultimately, the goal of any organization should be to achieve gender equality, because whenever there's going to be an imbalance, consider a car or a cycle or like a two-wheeler. If one of the wheels is of a different size than the other, the vehicle will not move, right? So similarly, it's with the society. If one section of the society, whether it is women or whether it is certain groups of men and women belonging to a certain religion or certain caste or certain community, who are suppressed, who are discriminated against, who are treated as less than equal, that society can never ever develop. And that is why we need to talk about these issues of gender discrimination. We need to sensitize ourselves and our society and our community towards issues which discriminate against a set of population. Now, coming to the topic of sexual harassment. So most of us, since we are working here, so let's talk at workplace. However, otherwise also, that there is sexual harassment, but recently there are cases, as you can see, which are coming up, a lot of cases of doctors, nurses, where women are getting sexually harassed and raped and even murdered, both in Uttarakhand, West Bengal, Maharashtra, and other places. Apart from the fact that there are all right young girls who are it's not in their workplace, but they're otherwise students also, young kids also, who are being sexually harassed and assaulted. Now, any kind of sexual harassment, whether, I mean, mostly it's the women who bear the brunt, but even if it's a man who has to bear it, that is unacceptable, because it's a violation of dignity and fundamental rights of any human being. Why should they be, made subject to this kind of or any kind of harassment, right? Also, there are barriers that women face already in participating in the economy on an equal footing. That uh, education, they're almost discriminated against. So boys are given preference in health, like diet. So boys are given preference. I mean, this is the kind of situation that we face in India. And even as far as having rights to land, access to resources, women face barriers. And I just gave you an example. The school is far, the girl might not go to school. The school does not have a toilet, the girl might not be able to go to school. Also, uh, collecting resources. So wherever we have seen, there are studies where my student was studying, the if the water supply is not regular and the day the water supply is delayed, the mother will make the daughter stay back, because it's mostly the women who carry water home, collect. It's not like us who have tapped water at home, so where people are going out and collecting water and bringing it home. And and they will ask the daughters to stay back, because it's the daughters who are helping their mothers to bring water. So girls are missing out in education. So these barriers are already there, that kind of create an unequal situation for women in their process to participate in the economy. So, and then add to it sexual harassment, so that she's scared of going to work because she will be harassed there. Also, this sexual harassment poses a severe obstruction to then to be able to participate in workforce, because obviously you have created a barrier. So she is going to, because of all those things plus the harassment, the imminent danger of being sexually assaulted, also limits her ability to participate in workforce. Okay. And that there are so many construction sites where, in agriculture sector, so much of harassment taking place. Domestic workers are facing so much of harassment. And over the years in India, we are seeing that there's a steady rise in the number of cases. In just last 1 year, we have seen 29% increase in complaints. Now, um, whether it is being more openly and bravely reported as opposed to a few years ago, or you know things are going boomeranging and going out of control, it's very difficult to say, because if you don't have reported cases from years earlier, it is very difficult to compare those. But yes, it is very shocking to see women being assaulted, sexually assaulted also, at their workplaces. Whenever they are going out, they are facing so much of harassment, which is really painful, which is really frightening, to say the least. Some of you are women, some of you are men who might have women family members, and I'm sure when they go out to work, you must be little nervous about their safety and security. So this is the kind of situation we are living in, and this really needs to be kind of discussed. And I'm very grateful to the organizer of this course, Dr. Ansari, that he's taken this topic, because this really needs to be, like, people need to be made aware of it. So most of the time in India, we don't talk about these things. They're mostly hushed up. But we need to talk about it, because until unless we don't kind of look at it in the face and say, yes, this is a problem, we will never be able to address it. So this needs to be discussed, this needs to be talked, people need to be sensitized. And I feel not just at our level, at our age group, it's from the school level. When the child is seeing his mother being abused, his sister being abused, his grandmother being abused or beaten up, or kind of assaulted, and so that is the psyche that the male child grows up with, that okay, it is perfectly fine for me to kind of beat up whoever is weaker than me, sexually assault anyone who's weaker than me, and I will get away with it. And the girl will perpetually grow in fear of this, and she will be scared of going out, stepping out. She will find it very difficult to overcome those barriers that have been created because of the environment that she has grown up in. So we definitely need to address these, kind of deal with them directly, because they are now right in our face. Now, there are laws on for sexual harassment, and most countries across the world have adopted some form of legislation uh, in their countries that cover, address sexual harassment issues. As far as India is concerned, we'll talk about India and then we'll go to the international laws. So, as far as India is concerned, and I promise not to make it boring. सो लॉज का नाम सुन के सबको लगा होगा, ओ माय गॉड, अब ये क्या हो रहा है, बट डोंट वरी, वील मेक इट, आई मेक इट वेरी काइंड ऑफ easy to for you to understand. But it's very important for us to understand that there are certain laws, and those laws should be, like, we should be aware of those laws and the ramifications and the implications of those laws. Only then can we ensure that we are protected and those around us are protected using those laws. Because most of the time people are not aware of laws. And often I feel, because I'm not a law student, I often feel that law should be made a compulsory subject in schools, just like gender sensitization should be made a compulsory subject in school, so that people know their rights, their, what rights they have, and how they can have access to those legal, kind of remedies. That is very important. So coming back to laws, as far as India is concerned, we have two major laws which address this. One is the Indian Penal Code, IPC, and the other is the Prevention of Sexual Harassment, which is called POSH, at Workplace Act of 2013. So I'll discuss these separately. As far as the IPC is concerned, it punishes sexual harassment anywhere, not just in the workplace. Okay, so this is much older act. This is a much older law, and it includes section 354A1, right? So IPC has got many sections, and which will deal with umpteen things, like everything under the law will be covered. But we are talking about sexual harassment, and that is, defined under 354A1, which and says sexual harassment definition, and also and the penalties for men who commit it, right? So the definition of sexual harassment is, a sexual offense. So it could be physical contact and advances involving unwelcome and explicit sexual overtures, so which is something which other person is not welcoming, yet somebody is trying to impose them on them physically. Also, like using your position of power to demand or request for social favors from those below you, those who are subordinate to you. So you are kind of demanding from them or requesting from them, which is really not acceptable. Because uh, always remember, if this happens, you have the right, you can turn to law, you can turn for recourse to law. So also, forcefully against the will of a woman showing pornographic material, that is also against, that's also sexual harassment, and also making sexually colored remarks. And fourth one, like most of us, I would say most women have, faced, at least one, the first one, that's physical contact and advances. So you could be, in a queue or somewhere, and you often face that. Maybe most of us have not faced it in our workplace, but other than workplace, all of us have faced it, right? But in certain places, we know that there are people who assert their, kind of position of power by making these advances, and kind of making the other person feel that they can control them. Also, sexually colored remarks is something that even I feel that, yes, in workplaces, even in the university system, there are people who make these remarks, and which is just not acceptable. And it is, like, and I would say that to all those, even the men and the women, if you see somebody making these kind of remarks, please tell them very politely, this is not done, this is not right. You just cannot make these kind of remarks about a particular, a certain section of the group. Why just see them as women? See them as one, a group in the society, and you have no business to make these kind of remarks. So these are the four parameters which define sexual harassment according to IPC, section 354A1. Now, what are the penalties if somebody does these? So, in case of offenses under clause 1, 2, and 3, right? These are punished with rigorous imprisonment. The term may extend to 3 years, or with fine, or with both, right? If somebody commits an offense specified in clause 4, then they shall be punished with imprisonment of either description of a term which may extend to 1 year. But most of the time, right, You and I, most of us have seen the first three and even the fourth clause happening. And just because we are not aware, we are not able to call out that person, we're just kind of mute witnesses to it, and we are not taking recourse to IPC, and that person just gets away with the fact that the other person will be too embarrassed and too ashamed to report it, because the society said that they always will turn around and blame the woman, right? So we need to be very careful about it. First of all, for if a person is themselves inviting those advances, then it's a different thing, then it's a totally different thing. However, if it's been done to someone or their colleague, then one needs to stand up to these issues. And lastly, the IPC also allows victims to file criminal complaints. So if somebody does this, so it's not only sexual harassment, but the victim can also file criminal complaints against the perpetrator of harassment. Second one, the POSH Act, right? This came in 2013, and obviously it's linked to the international laws, etc. So we'll go to that later. But this was enacted to promote women's rights and safety and protect women from sexual harassment in the workplace. And so it was specifically, the IPC was not just looking at workplace, but other places also. And this act was introduced primarily, specifically, to address these issues at the workplace. Also, based on the constitutional guarantees that we have, right, of life, liberty, freedom from discrimination, right to practice a profession without hindrance. Because as we've been discussing a little earlier, that if I am scared that I will be sexually assaulted, I will not be able to live freely. I will be scared and worried if I'm going to work, that God knows when, who's going to pounce on me, who's going to misbehave with me, who's going to insult me by, making sexual remarks. And obviously, I will not be able to practice a profession where I would want to say, I want to work in the corporate, right? Or I want to be an engineer, or I want to do anything. So even a woman or a man, if you're not able to practice freely, imagine how constricted and how restricted you will feel in your life. So you will not be able to even get the rights you have been guaranteed in the Constitution of India, of life, liberty, freedom from discrimination, and right to practice a profession. How inhuman is that? How kind of how discriminatory is that? So this act, the POSH Act of 2013, defines sexual harassment, that what is sexual harassment, creates a mechanism of redressal of complaints, just like the previous IPC. This thing, it creates like how complaints can be addressed. It mandates organizations to define their policies, prevention systems, procedures, and service routes. So every organization, whether it is, say, my university or your university or college, or any university and college, or any corporate or any organization that is employing people, has to define its policies, prevention systems, that how they will prevent sexual harassment from taking place, what will be the procedures to address those, what are the service rules that they have. So the act's definition of aggrieved woman is very broad under POSH Act, and includes all women, right? It's not about certain age or some employment status or which sector they are, but every woman in this is included, that if she has been aggrieved through an act of sexual harassment, she can kind of seek redressal under the act. Now, this act covers certain concepts. Now, both these concepts are again have been taken from the ILO conventions. So I'll be referring to them later, but here let me just tell you. Quid pro quo harassment. Now, what is quid pro quo harassment? That means up a sort of say a boss is trying to go back to the previous slide where we were talking about trying to let me just no say physical contact and advances involving unwelcome and explicit social sexual overtures. Okay, right. A demand for request for sexual favors. So think of this, right? Now the boss is asking for some favor, a physical favor, physical sexual favor from his subordinate, right? And if the subordinate does not agree, then they will be, punished in ways. Say their salary might be, they might not get their due enhancement, they might not get due promotion, they might, their services might be terminated. So only if you fulfill certain things that I want from you, sexually want from you, if you fulfill those, then you will get XYZ, promotion, pay hike, etc., etc., leave, etc., etc. So this is like quid pro quo harassment. Okay. The other one is called hostile work environment. That means creating a situation where if you're not giving in to the demands of the boss, they are creating an environment which is hostile to you, which is not very comfortable for you, where you might be acted against rudely, where you might be harassed, where you might be made to work extra, and all these kind of things. So if, and this is obviously part of sexual harassment, right? So this obviously, anyone who experiences this must report the matter, and this includes, it could be clients, customers, domestic workers. Okay. So if it's a corporate and they have clients, and the client is trying to kind of push their way through by sexually harassing the worker of the firm or the employee of the firm, this is a sexual harassment act. If the customers, if you're harassing your customers, then obviously again this is the same situation. Domestic workers, people who are working in other people's houses or in their own houses, they are also included under this. So the act requires any employer who has 10 or more employees to set up an internal complaint committee, right, at each office or branch, which will address here all grievances related to sexual harassment. And if the organization does not have these committees, internal complaints committees, which are called ICCs, then this is going to result in a fine. But obviously most organizations who are registered do have these, but most unregistered organizations do not have ICC. The fines are also such small amounts that they never get kind of implemented. Secondly, employers should report sexual harassment offenses, and they should also include those in their annual report. So it's very important for the employers also to not just set up the ICC, but to report the offenses, and in their annual reports, this should be also reported. However, as we know that this is almost not getting done in most of the places. Even in the university system, it's not getting done. Even in, say, hospitals, it's not getting. That is why the perpetrators of sexual harassment crimes are getting away with it, right? Now, the section 26 of the Act states that anyone who contravenes or attempts to contravene the Act's provision can be fined up to 50,000. What a small amount compared to the kind of indignity, insult, harassment that a person will face. They only have to pay 50,000, and most of the time they know that the crime will not get reported, so they kind of get away with it, right? Also, the Act gives victims the option to seek civil remedies, right? It gives options to seek civil remedies and damages through their office administration, in addition to criminal complaints. They can do that. The Act says, Act is very nice, but will the office administration help them? Whether and once they face this kind of thing, that the office administration is not helping them, the office administration might kind of threaten them that if you do this, if something goes out of the office premises, everybody hears about it, you will lose your job. So most of the time they'll be so scared they might not even lodge any complaints, leave alone criminal complaints. Now, coming to the International Labour Organization, which is the umbrella organization which looks at all labor laws. So let's see what they have as far as this sexual harassment is concerned. So ILO has standards and guidelines on prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. And because it's a serious manifestation of sex discrimination as well as violation of human rights. And so ILO has addressed this in a convention which is called ILO Discrimination, Employment and Occupation Convention 1958, number 111. Okay. So in June 2019, at the centenary conference of the International Labour Organization, so originally this ILO Discrimination Convention came in 1958, but again in 2019, at the centenary conference of the International Labour Organization, the Violence and Harassment Convention, number 190, and again a recommendation, accompanying recommendation number 206 were adopted. So now ILO has two of them. One is the ILO Discrimination, Employment and Occupation Convention 1958, number 111, which was adopted in 1958. Then again in 2019, it has adopted the Violence and Harassment Convention number 190 and its accompanying recommendation number 206. So at the international level also, any country can use this, like any person in any country can kind of use whatever has been put down in these conventions and recommendations to seek redressal. So under the convention 190, sexual harassment is not defined, although it's violence and harassment, but it's included within the definition of gender based violence and harassment of Article 11B, right? So it has been included. It has been, kind of within the convention, it has been included. Now, these landmark instruments that are there were developed not just by ILO, but representatives of different governments, employers, and workers. So it was a kind of all stakeholders coming together to, kind of decide that what instruments need to be put in place. So they set out common framework to prevent and address violence and harassment, and which should be, which should address gender responsive approach. Therefore, it's like, look at how women or how a certain group of people are, being treated, and how they can have a redressal for that kind of treatment. Now, within the framework of ILO Convention number 111, that is the original one, and according to the 2002 General Observation of ILO Committee of Experts, the application of conventions and recommendations. So definitions of sexual harassment contain the following key elements. I had told you quid pro quo and hostile work environment, and these same have been adopted in the POSH Act of 2013. So this came out in 2002, and these have been taken in the 2013 POSH Act in India. Now, as far as the Violence and Harassment Convention of ILO is concerned, it states very clearly that everyone has the right to a world of work which is free of violence and harassment. And if anybody is feeling that I am going to be, somebody's going to be violent towards me, somebody's going to sexually harass me or harass me in any form, it is taking away my right to work. So gender-based violence, harassment, all that should not be there. Also, this particular convention offers broad protection and applies to the public and private sectors, both to formal and informal economy, and to urban and rural areas. So this convention is broad, much more broad based than even the individual countries' laws. It defines violence and harassment as a range of unacceptable behaviors and practices. So if somebody is, even if a man is trying to misbehave with another man and it's unacceptable, it will fall under this definition of violence and harassment. Okay. And it's not just about men harassing a woman, but anybody harassing anyone else under any pretext gets covered under this, right? And whether it's a single occurrence, single case, or it's repeated, and it's leading to some kind of psychological, physical, sexual, or economic harm, uh, that is definitely gender-based violence and harassment. Okay. Also, it says violence and harassment directed at persons because of their sex or gender. So I told you right in the beginning that sex and gender are two different things. So if violence and harassment is there because X is a woman and therefore a man is harassing her, or another man, then is harassment, right? And it amounts to sexual harassment. Or if it's gender discriminatory, then it also includes sexual harassment under Article 1.1. Now, let's quickly look at who are the victims of sexual harassment. It can target anyone in the world of work, you, me, anyone. So we need to be very, very careful. Must make sure that we report a matter whenever it happens. It's often, as I've been talking to you, it's based on the abuse of power. I'm in a powerful position and I can abuse you because of that, whether sexually or physically or whatever way. And reported cases are usually committed against women and are mostly done by men. Uh, Women from specific groups may face sexual harassment in particular ways, right? Say a woman of color or a woman from a certain community might face it more. So this is there. Or say maybe she's economically very weak, then she might be have to face more sexual harassment. So primarily because of the intersection or combination of factors and circumstances that are there, this increases the risk of violence and harassment. So and it's not just against women, as we said. No, it's not about just gender, sex. It's about gender as well. So but most of the times we find women facing sexual harassment more than men. Sometimes men are also facing, we are seeing cases of that also. And since it's happening in the place of work, then this is also having an adverse impact on the world of work, or in the workplaces. So ILO committee of experts said that sexual harassment undermines equality at work, by because the integrity, dignity, and well-being of workers is affected. Because if I'm psychologically affected, if I'm physically harmed, right, if I'm emotionally disturbed, it's going to affect my well-being and my dignity. Also, the organization where these cases are happening frequently, it is going to damage that enterprise. The work environment will be disturbed, the reputation of that organization will be affected, the work relationships are going to be affected, and all this is going to impact the productivity of that organization. When productivity of any organization is affected, it's going to lead to monetary costs, increasing monetary costs for that organization and that for those governments. So the countries where a lot of, say, countries like Afghanistan and all, where a lot of such things are happening, where women are made to feel very kind of very vulnerable, those countries cannot perform well on in their development processes. They are going to be affected very, very adversely, right? So all kinds of costs are going to be there, whether medical care, productivity loss, case settlement, judicial, monetary awards, everything is going to be kind of be adversely affected, because people will have to bear greater and greater costs, whether it's for medical care or for output or for case settlement or judicially monetary awards. Now, for employers, right? Sexual harassment can lead to significant reputation costs, say in any university or college where there is a lot of sex. So what is happening to RG Kar Medical College? What kind of reputation has it got? They'll take years to rebuild it from what it was, an institution which was set up with such high ideals. So obviously there are significant reputation costs when such cases continuously are happening in any institution or in any organization. And it's going to kind of creates significant health issues also for the victims. So again, continuing with the adverse impact, um, if I'm feeling I'm being sexually harassed, I might not, kind of want to get my promotions, because I know that I'm expected to do a quid pro quo, and which I'm not willing to go. So it's going to impact my pay. It will impact my career progression, and obviously women then will end up earning less than men. And then again, there'll be this power dynamics where men will continue to feel more superior, will be in more powerful positions, and continue to exploit women. So until unless all this is not addressed, we are going to continue creating discrimination and gender hierarchies within the society. Also, it's going to impact on occupational segregation. Often, we see that there are gender roles and stereotypes often lead to men and women working in different occupations, because and if an organization is where more men are there, very few women who want to go, and as a result, you know most women will not go into those occupations even if they are well paid. Because, so even if, say, somebody is in the IT sector, and she's applied for a job and she gets it, and she goes to the organization, she realizes there are only 2 3 women, and men's behavior towards women is that of harassing them, of seeing them with those looking at them with an attitude that, okay, these are inferior to us and we can get away with any kind of nonsense. The women will be forced to leave that job and lose out on the pay and the opportunity she has, where that, despite her qualifications. So this is also problematic, because whenever there's harassment, we force women to kind of move out of certain occupations and force them into kind of only a certain limited number of occupations. So there are adverse impacts of these harassment, the sexual harassment. Now, how can we prevent this sexual harassment taking place at workplace? You know, Physically and psychologically harmful. We've been talking about that. And so this should not be tolerated under any circumstances. And I hope through this, today's class, or today's talk, all of you will become aware, because the objective is to make you to gender sensitize you, that yes, these are the issues. Maybe it's not happening in your organization, but you can always, help others in your area who are probably kind of facing this kind of situation. So under any circumstances, this cannot be tolerated in any workplace. So if this needs to be prevented, it is important to build inclusive and supportive workplaces where it is clear that sexual harassment is not will not be tolerated, right? So I'm sorry for the syntax, will not be tolerated. So this is very important, that we must ensure that every heads of organizations, or corporate sector, or all those who are important for the administration of any organization, they should ensure that the workplace is just, it allows every employee to work freely without any fear or under any pressure that they of sexual abuse. Now, apart from the fact that it creates a kind of a fear in people, if they are being sexually harassed or assaulted or whatever, in any way discriminated against, what is more problematic is that, right, all of you are aware of SDGs, right? Now, we cannot achieve our sustainable development goals, the overall sustainable development goals in 2030, if we are not able to address sexual harassment and gender discrimination, right? If we are not, sensitized towards gender issues, we really cannot achieve our SDGs, and especially SDGs 5, 8, and 16. That these are very, very important. Why? SDG 5 talks about gender equality. And when there is sexual harassment taking place, it's automatically creating a situation of gender inequality. So you're not going to achieve SDG 5. SDG 8 talks about decent work. So if, because of sexual harassment, a woman is being forced to leave work and move to another place where the work is not of the type that she wants to work, and she's qualified to do something better, but the atmosphere, the environment in that place is such where she's feeling sexually threatened, and she has to leave that. So she's being denied SDG 8, right to decent work. If SDG 16 talks about peace, justice, and strong institutions. So, an institution which discriminates, which allows discrimination against certain sections in the employee community, um, allows them to, kind of oppress a certain group, exploit a certain group. Where is the peace? Where is the justice in that? And then how can this institution be strong, right? So for, and then if three SDGs, we are failing on three SDGs, SDG 5, 8, 16, if we are failing on these, do we really, can we really say that we will achieve our sustainable development goals by 2030? Definitely not. Every SDG needs to be fulfilled. Only then can we say that the world has achieved, and every country needs to fulfill those. That's why we had to give up the MDGs, because we realized we are not able to achieve the MDGs. So we moved to the SDGs. And if we are not able to achieve SDGs, all the SDGs, and in every country, we really cannot hope the world to achieve, achieve its sustainable development goals. Recently, in past few years, all of you are familiar, there have been global campaigns like hashtag Me Too and hashtag Times Up, which are basically, came up in response to the rampant case of sexual harassment which are affecting workers across countries. It's not just in India, but in US and in other countries. So these campaigns have come up to, kind of fight against these cases, raise a voice against these cases, call out the perpetrators of sexual harassment. SDG 5, let me just talk a little more about this. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Now, when you are sexually harassing a woman, you're you're not letting her have access to equality. You are actually disempowering her, because of the harassment, she might not go to school, she might not be able to study as much, she might not be able to take up a job. So she is being treated unequally, women and girls both. So everywhere, women and girls should be ensured equal rights and opportunity, and to be able to live in a free, an environment which is free of violence and discrimination. Also, women's equality and empowerment is one of the 17 sustainable development goals, as we were talking. But it's also integral to all dimensions of inclusive and sustainable development. You cannot fulfill any SDG without fulfilling SDG 5. Okay. And also, you know, all SDGs depend on the achievement of goal 5. So therefore, SDG 5 becomes extremely important. The European Union and UN also embarked on a new global multi-year initiative, which is focused on eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls, WAWG, violence against women and girls. And this is called the Spotlight Initiative. So this is basically going is the objective is to strengthen the Sustainable Development 2030 agenda, where they're talking about leaving no one behind. Because I was just talking to you that if every country does not achieve every SDG, we really cannot expect the world to be able to achieve sustainable development. And it is very important that we achieve sustainable development, because otherwise we'll be leaving the future generations with in a we'll be entrusting a very, very sad, very, very very, very bad world to the future generations, where they will be perplexed as to how to move forward in that. whether it's environment, whether it's human security, whether it's justice, whether it's employment, whether it's productivity, on all fronts, because different SDGs, the 17 SDGs, take care of all different aspects that concern any human being or any life form on earth. So that needs to be addressed. And so gender equality by 2030 requires urgent action to eliminate the various causes of discrimination that are still there, which are curtailing women's rights, both in public as well as private spheres. Discriminatory laws need to change. As I told you, if the one reason, as we were talking right from the beginning, that one reason why women get discriminated against most is because of the position, the subordinate position that the society has ended up giving them. She has no rights. um, if she has to be, especially in Indian scenario, if she has to be married off, then the parents have to give a lot of money. Because of that, she's deprived of education. She's often not, her health is not a priority, her education is not priority, and all these things adversely impact her position in the society. And it's also like that with a certain section of the population which are considered to be subordinate to the rest of the population, which thinks that they are superior in some way. So until and unless all these discriminatory practices are not done away with, until and unless we do not ensure that everybody has equal right to, all those basic rights to life, liberty, work, education, food, till then this is going to be a problem. Till then there is going to be a discrimination and harassment. And so I would end here, and but the whole objective, I hope, was to, um, through the issue of sexual harassment, we would be able to sensitize all of you. Uh, gender sensitize all of you. Uh, I want to, yeah, to gender sensitize all of you so that you are more aware of the issues that sexual harassment can cause, any kind of gender discrimination can cause in the society, and you are more equipped to address those issues, to be able to, kind of you know if your organization does not have an internal complaints committee, ICC, I would request all of you to talk to your organizational heads and request them to to set up ICC. Also talk to other colleagues in your organization, college, university, wherever you are, that we need to kind of make others aware. So we also have this, the UGC has a scheme, the Gender Champion Scheme, and I'm sure all of you must be implementing this, but in case you're not, then you all must find out about it, whereby all the students, like, in every faculty we have gender champions which are appointed through a due process which has been laid down by UGC. And those students are, taught, they have workshops where we train them as to how to address gender issues at the at the student level. So that is also important, that will help sensitizing the students. And as teachers, it is our role, as educationists, it is our role to sensitize our students towards gender issues, and also talk in our organizations that we need to address gender issues so that India too can achieve its sustainable goal agenda. Thank you so much. So we can, I think, if Dr. Ansari agrees, we can open the house for discussion.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your this very informative deliberation, which is uh, very least taken into consideration in academia. With these words, I would like to invite question or observation from the participants. If you have any query or question, participant, you can ask with ma'am.
Thank you
Participant.
so much. or the lovely emojis. But the impact would only be felt if you're able to understand and if you're able to discuss and also take back something to your organizations.
Yes, ma'am. Vishal sir,
Looks looks like I've put everyone to sleep,
Hara ma'am.
Yes, sir. No, ma'am. We are very much awake.
um,
Your lecture was very good, ma'am. And
Thank you. But
yeah, and you
did
covered everything about it. So, as such, yes, ma'am. Yes.
if there are any questions or any concerns that you all feel, I
Like
know that where you are coming
just a
from in women's college, I've been there and I found it because there are predominantly women are there. So most of
yes.
us don't feel that case of gender discrimination. But often when we are in situations where it's a male dominated environment or we are an outsider in an organization, that those are the situations where you might experience discrimination, gender discrimination, or some kind of harassment. It could be sexual harassment or just a harassment at workplace. So, I mean, I hope that all of you are a little more aware of these issues and would be able to address them at your level.
Uh, and ma'am, just a little concern. Like, if we want to see laws related to, like, for the safety of women or against the domestic violence, so is there any platform online so we can go through that and have a look?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go to NCW, National Commission for Women. Everything
Okay.
related to women, laws related to women, you will find that. If you're just looking at laws, if you want to look at laws at workplace for people in workplace, then you need to go to Ministry of Labor. Their
Okay.
website will have all the laws pertaining to that. And
Okay, ma'am.
it's always very good, it's very important for us to be aware of what is there, what are the laws, which are important for us, of
Yes,
those
ma'am.
around us.
Ji, ji. Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. One little observation what I want to share with you, ma'am. Not
Yes.
that is not question. We are framing various laws. We are passing various acts in our parliament, but
Mhm.
still the harassment even on the roadside is increasing day by day. So I think, ma'am, it's my own observation being a student of education, educating more and more to the people about the rights of the women, about the gender sensitization, about the gender issues more in among the male population as compared to the female. I think that will be more fruitful and more applicable and implementable to checking the rights of the women, rights of the particularly women, I think.
Right in the beginning, if you remember, I had said that we need to gender sensitize everyone, right? Even
Yes.
women also, because sometimes as women we might be perpetrators of creating those gender discriminatory practices, or using those gender discriminatory practices right at home, where the mother is giving preference to the male child, right, over the female child, where the mother-in-law is treating the daughter-in-law unfairly. um, um, so that's where at the social level, right from our houses, from our homes, we are creating a situation which is discriminatory, right? And see, maybe आपके मेरे घर में ये नहीं हो रहा है, but think of the masses. Most of the time, except in hashtag me too में और इनमें कुछ educated लोग भी थे who were called out, but आप most of the cases में देखिए जहाँ पे rape हो रहा है और जहाँ पे sexual assault हो रहा है, वहाँ पे बहुत सारे cases में the perpetrator is not very educated or very literate or whatever. And so most of the time what you find, they're coming from a society where they've seen women being treated as somebody who's subordinate. चाहे उसे मारो, चाहे पीटो, चाहे assault करो, and she does not have any right, she does not have a voice. Like, I have a student of mine, and she's well educated, she's a PhD, and she's such a brilliant student. I've known her since she was my student in BA, and she is being beaten up at home and assaulted. And when she told her mother-in-law, so the mother-in-law says, it's okay, you know, ye to hota hai, main bhi piti thi, tum bhi pit lo. You know, it's kind of taken as acceptable in the society, as if
ट्रेडिशन ट्रेंड की तरह लेते हैं इसको.
हाँ, मतलब औरत की तो को तो नॉर्मली उसके साथ ऐसा होता है, so there's nothing different for us to be bothered about, which is very sad. And यही बात है जो कि जो perpetrators हैं of crime and sexual crimes, वो उनके हौसले और बढ़ते जाते हैं. You know, they feel that I can get away. When I can get away with it at home, I can do that outside also, in the society also. And women तो वैसे भी soft target हो जाती हैं, क्योंकि अगर आप इकोनॉमिकली पुअर हैं, अगर आप सोशली हायरार्की में लो हैं, और आप एक औरत भी हैं, तो आप तो बहुत सॉफ्ट टारगेट हो गए. एंड सॉफ्ट टारगेट्स मेल्स भी होते हैं जो कि इकोनॉमिकली सोशली लोअर हायरार्की में होते हैं. बट विमेन के साथ इट्स वेरी इजी, क्योंकि most of the time she'll be very scared to go out and report the matter. So the reason we are seeing you know, cases are also on the rise. Unfortunately, in India में the crime, the sexual crimes are so brutal, जो कि दुनिया में शायद नहीं होते हैं जिस तरह से हमारे यहाँ होते हैं. But women are now also coming out. They're gaining some kind of courage. They're coming out and reporting it. And with the yes, with the social media and with the visual, the online media platforms coming in, you know, in action, things get reported faster. पहले भी आती थी, but बहुत कम खबरें रिपोर्ट होती थी. Women were not so aware. Access to say media was very limited, और वो शायद बहुत छोटे उसमें कहीं अखबार में छुपी हुई रिपोर्ट होती थी, तो उसकी विजिबिलिटी भी बहुत कम रहती थी. तो इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू से कि केसेस बड़े हैं नहीं बड़े हैं, और सिर्फ रिपोर्टिंग बढ़ गई है. वी रियली कैन नॉट से. जब हमारे पास केसेस पूरे हैं ही नहीं पहले के, तो हम आज कैसे कह सकते हैं कि
कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते.
हाँ, एग्जैक्टली. बट यस, अब विजिबिलिटी कम से कम आने लगी है. वी आर अवेयर ऑफ. हाँ, so I just hope that like sooner or later the governments will be able to address these issues. And most of the time, you know, like the kind of impunity that is given to these criminals, we are seeing them being released, you know, from jails. And they've done a crime against a certain section of the population. How can they be, you know, kind of pardoned like that? You know, so until unless the punishment doesn't become really punitive, until unless they are not scared that if we do something like this, it is going to affect our future, you know, until unless this doesn't happen, it's very difficult to address this issue. Also, as I said, स्कूल लेवल से ही ये अवेयरनेस. पहले हम लोग जब छोटे थे तो मॉरल साइंस की एक किताब होती थी, एक पीरियड होता था वंस और ट्वाइस अ वीक, और वो सिखाया जाता था. सर्टेन वैल्यूज आई फील कि हमारे घर से भी आई हैं और स्कूल से भी आई हैं. बट अब स्कूल्स में अगर बहुत जरूरत है, क्योंकि सोसाइटी में बहुत ज्यादा इस तरह की सिचुएशन क्रिएट हो गई है, तो बहुत जरूरत है कि एक यू नो बच्चियों को, एक औरतों को एक लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड मिले. और वो तभी हो सकता है जब सोसाइटी इज जेंडर सेंसिटाइज्ड. एंड स्कूल लेवल से ही अगर आप जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन का प्रोग्राम लेके चलते हैं, तभी जाके बड़े होके असर हो पाएगा. इस एज पे आप उनको बताएंगे, उनका एक माइंडसेट बन चुका है. इट इज नॉट वेरी इजी फॉर देम टू गेट आउट ऑफ दैट माइंडसेट. In fact, for several years, women studies centers all over the country are trying कि भाई आप ये स्कूल में, जिस तरह से आपने एनवायरमेंटल साइंस को एक कंपल्सरी सब्जेक्ट बनाया है स्कूल में, उसी तरह से पहले यूजीसी ने बहुत पहले जब एनवायरमेंटल साइंस का था तो कहा था कि विमेन स्टडीज का भी यू नो इंट्रोड्यूस करें, बट उसको एक बहुत इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया. बट आप विमेन स्टडीज मत इम्प्लीमेंट करो, जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन करके एक कोर्स स्कूल में इम्प्लीमेंट कर दो, जिसकी वजह से बच्चों को बचपन से ही उनको ये सेंसिटाइज किया जाए। ठीक है, सेक्स एजुकेशन हमारे कंट्री में नहीं आप दे सकते हैं, बाहर की कंट्रीज में दिया जाता है, आप वो मत दीजिए, बट एटलीस्ट जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन का एक आप करिकुलम में एडिशन कर दें। बट somehow गवर्नमेंट्स डोंट फील इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट, हम कैसे, एंड दे फील बहुत ही, मतलब उन्हें लगता है कि बहुत इट इज नॉट राइट टू टॉक टू चिल्ड्रन अबाउट। अरे आप क्यों नहीं बात कर सकते कि भेदभाव मत करो, जाति और उसके ऊपर आप भेदभाव मत करो, आप सबको समान तरीके से ट्रीट करो, ये क्यों नहीं हम स्कूल में पढ़ा सकते हैं? Just part of a civics book is not sufficient. It should be taught as a separate subject to them. That अगर हम discriminate करेंगे तो क्या होगा? And considering that SDGs भी हैं, तो और हम उसको नहीं वो कर सकते। I think Dr. Subhash Chandra, हाँ, he has a question.
हेलो मैम।
Yes, hello.
जी सुभाष जी, क्वेश्चन कीजिए, कुछ करना चाहते हैं? आपने रेज हैंड किया, हैंड रेज किया आपने सुभाष जी।
Ma'am, we want justice. Now it is the slogan of our state, but this is not my slogan. Your lecture is very fantastic. So this is my question, that if we remove the inequality economically from our society, then the gender discrimination will be removed from our country.
To a very large extent, yes. But how will you remove inequality? How will you remove it? By providing education?
Yes, ma'am.
By providing space where women also feel equal employees, right? But अगर वहाँ sexual harassment हो रहा है तो वो कैसे जाके वहाँ काम करेगी? तो inequality तो हटानी है आपको, उसको rights देने हैं, उसको resources के ऊपर control देना है, right? उसको education देनी है, उसको सब कुछ बराबर से देना चाहिए। मतलब why is she treated unequally? So that is very important. अगर आप inequality remove करेंगे तो समानता आ ही जाएगी, right? Women will be more secure. मगर वो उसको ऐसा नहीं है, कोई जादू की छड़ी नहीं है कि आज हमने कहा कि भाई inequality remove कर दो और कल inequality remove हो जाएगी। वो तभी हो सकता है जब हम और सारी चीजें which contribute to creating that inequality are addressed, you know.
यस मैम। मैडम आप जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन की बात कर रही, तो मैं आपको बताऊं कि बीएड में एक पेपर हम लोगों ने इंट्रोड्यूस किया है, जेंडर स्कूल एंड सोसाइटी, दैट एम्स टू कैटर दी sensitize our students and teachers trainee
future
teachers or pupil teacher to let them know what is the gender sensitization, what is the gender issues, what is the gender issues in schools and in society. तो एनसीटी का ये करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क बनाया उसने, और एनसीईआरटी और एनसीटी ने मिलके इसको अब बाकायदा हर डिपार्टमेंट से, खासतौर से टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स के जो डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं वहाँ से एक टीचर को इनवाइट करके उनको ट्रेनिंग दी गई, एंड आई वाज वन ऑफ देम। तो बड़ा अच्छा कोर्स है मैम ये, एंड इट विल नॉट ओनली इनकलकेट द इन फॉर अवेयरनेस, बट इट विल इनकलकेट हाउ टू डील विद द इवन इन द स्कूल लेवल, एंड फ्रॉम द स्कूल लेवल कि कैसे स्कूल लेवल पे सेंसिटाइजेशन को किया जाए। तो हम लोग वो पेपर इंट्रोड्यूस किए हैं डिपार्टमेंट में, पिछले 4-5 साल से चल भी रहा है।
बहुत खूब, लेकिन जब तक एनसीईआरटी इसे कंपल्सरी सब्जेक्ट नहीं बनाएगी।
हाँ मैम, अभी ऑप्शनल है, दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम।
हाँ, नहीं, जब तक उसे स्कूल में एक कंपल्सरी सब्जेक्ट नहीं बनाएगी तो जो टीचर को आप ट्रेन कर रहे हैं वो
कोई फायदा नहीं होता मैडम।
हाँ, वो सोचेगा ये क्यों पढ़े हम, यू नो, इसकी क्या वो है, इसके
वो
लिए तो
एनवायरनमेंट ले लेता है, वो कुछ और ले लेता है,
तो इसके लिए मुझे हायर नहीं किया जाएगा। जब तक स्कूल में कंपलसरी सब्जेक्ट नहीं होगा तब तक टीचर की डिमांड नहीं होगी उस सब्जेक्ट के लिए, जब तक वो डिमांड नहीं क्रिएट होगी उस सब्जेक्ट की इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं मानी जाएगी। So it's all an issue at the policy level, at the ground level. सब तरफ अगर if you really want to achieve sustainable development goals, and if you really are serious about achieving gender equality, तब तक नहीं होगा। But what we see that जो public organizations हैं, institutions हैं who are governing the education system, they are not really kind of उसको थोड़ा सा स्टेक होल्डर्स को लेके पार्टिसिपेटरी अप्रोच से कि क्या इश्यूज हैं ग्राउंड पे और उसको एड्रेस करें, क्योंकि गांव-गांव में अब एनसीईआरटी का सिलेबस पढ़ाया जाता है, और अगर उसमें जेंडर स्टडीज या जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन का एक एक सब्जेक्ट
लेसन
बना,
या उसमें, हाँ,
हाँ, तभी आप उसको हर जगह केटर कर
ग्राउंड
सकते
लेवल पे ला सकते हैं।
हैं। बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू वेरी मच मैम फॉर नाइस डिलिब्रेशन एंड डिस्कशन इवेंट। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया मैम आपका, आप हमसे जुड़ी एचआरडीसी की तरफ से मैं आपका शुक्रगुजार हूँ मैम
थैंक
कि
यू सो
आपने
मच।
अपने इंफॉर्मेटिव लेक्चर दिए मैम। बहुत बहुत
थैंक
शुक्रिया
यू सो मच।
मैम।
आपकी वजह से मैंने भी थोड़ा सा इस टॉपिक को पढ़ लिया, जो
अरे
कि हम
नहीं,
सब
आप इस
जानते हैं।
टॉपिक को क्या पढ़ेंगे मैम, मैं जानता हूँ वुमेन
ये
स्टडीज में
नहीं,
आप है
मतलब
तो।
हम सब जानते हैं इश्यूज, लेकिन उसको उतना डिटेल में नहीं देखते, क्योंकि मेरा एरिया इज लाइक लिटिल डिफरेंट, इट्स इकोनॉमिक एंड एनवायरमेंट, हाँ, पे है। तो मतलब लेकिन सबको पता है भाई, वी शुड हैव आईसीसी, ये दीज थिंग्स आर कैन आर पनिशेबल एंड एवरीथिंग, बट उसको थोड़ा सा आपकी बदौलत मैंने थोड़ा सा उसको एज अ सब्जेक्ट पढ़ने की कोशिश की है, and I hope I have been able to share something valuable with our participants today.
Sure, ma'am. We have sensitized and we have oriented about the gender sensitization and women harassment. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can I leave?
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Participants join again at 5:30 for the next lecture of Asim Zafar Saab, which he will deliver in continuation of yesterday lecture of e-content creation. So be on time. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Sure, inshallah, sir.
कुछ पूछ रहे हैं अशरफ साहब?
नहीं सर, मैंने कहा कि इंशाल्लाह उसमें ज्वाइन करेंगे। आज वो बड़ा जरूरी लेक्चर है, ई कंटेंट डेवलप
जी,
करने की
बिल्कुल
जरूरत है।
बिल्कुल, आप लोग उनसे नंबर भी ले लीजिए, ईमेल ले लीजिए, उनसे कांटेक्ट में रहिए। Even he is doing very good in the department and the Aligarh Muslim University, and we're covering various department of AMU for creating e-content.
हाँ सर, आप उनको बताइएगा वो शेयर करें हमारे साथ, क्योंकि आप
मैं उनसे बोल भी दूंगा कि आप शेयर कर लीजिए।
जी जी जी,
ठीक है, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
ओके ओके सर, अल्लाह हाफिज।
अल्लाह हाफिज।